Hello and welcome everybody to Esports Weekly for the week of September 10th. We're going to be going through the PGS, the PCS, and I guess actually now it's the Console League, as well as the PPL for what we're going to be having. My name is Cormiser. Also known as William Newberry. With me, Zevin Rayner, Nick Keogh, Rain Day,
Voice of
pretty
God
hair.
off screen.
Yeah. The voice of God off screen.
What's up, man?
I got to remember the new names.
You do. You know what? It's one of the things that trips you up as a host sometimes, just introducing people by their real names and then their fake names that we all use.
I like the fake names more.
They are fun.
I feel like everyone remembers the fake names way easier.
You get caught up in the combo, the Nick Pretty Hair Keogh, the Nick Keogh, okay, Pretty Hair.
You remember the one time Rabies called me something? He did that and he butchered it. And I think he called me Dick on stream, and I was just like,
Nick Pretty.
I just like took my headset off and just walked off.
How do you know, Rabies? How do you know?
Well, so far this week, I did say Console League, but we actually don't have anything to talk about. Last week, we didn't have the Console League, so we're actually going to be doing that a little bit later. Round 11, today. We're hoping for 11, but it really does kind of depend on how long we go here. But I've been told that we do have kind of a hard cutoff, and we are going to be covering all of the console games. So we're going to have 8 best of 3s to go through. It's going to be pretty fun.
It will be. I'm excited to see console. I think Koga will be more of an interesting aspect to it that's actually legal this time, and we'll also get to see you know, the boys back. It's been a week off. I miss them.
I think in terms of the console scene, he's just going to be permabanned, unfortunately, but that does mean something else is going to be making it through.
Yeah.
That actually does lead into the first thing we wanted to talk about. Was Koga one of the things we had mentioned, I think, a couple weeks ago when we saw it in the Console League. We got to talk about it on Gather Round, but like you said, it wasn't supposed to be there, and then the next week we didn't get to see it because it, again, hadn't been open. But this week is the first week we actually get to see him full completely, so I'm kind of curious as to how that's going to go, but that's going to be after we look at the Premier League, the way things went week 1, and do you think it's going to make a splash for week 2?
Yeah, I think, you know, with Koga, I have this impression, because I've spent so much time trying different things with him and trying to come up with wacky things, that it's actually a really viable champion for this meta. I don't know where he will be played in terms of a lineup. Will a Genos have to be acquired with him? I think you're going to get the most out of his card Trigger Happy, which is one of his most winning cards there with a Genos, because you get the healing on the Astral Mark, you get the bonus damage. It's all things that Koga wants. The other thing that I think people are sleeping on, maybe, is the burst from Skewer, Blood Reaper, excuse me. That's a talent that allows him to get basically 1,000 bursts for 1 bar of his Koga meter. And burst is usually good in high level. I know it's risky. I know it's not the strategy and you don't bring out the claws, but that's like kind of my hot take, if I would say, like somebody one day, like an Evil Eye going for Snow Globe is going to bring out Blood Reaper.
It's a matter of time.
It's going to work. Yeah.
It's definitely a matter of time. I don't know if it'll happen in the first week that Koga's available, because there is so many safe and familiar. It feels like easier Androxus to me.
That's right.
When you play that dash ammo healing build, right? It's kind of the same sort of thing, right? But the dash happens a little bit slower. You're immune the whole time. You get to get your camera all set up to track your target when you come out of it. It's like it felt good to me as a long-standing Paladins player, and a lot of the pro players are, right? So a lot of them, I think, are going to identify heaviest with that build.
I'm excited to see the loadouts and what we get to see, because I feel like there is a little bit more versatility, a lot of kind of branching out for him right now. And this is, I mean, the first week is always going to be the experimentation week, is whether or not you're going to branch out and try this thing that's ridiculous, or if you're just going to keep with the tried and true. But we also have a hot and not, or a hot or not, I guess, with the way things have been going. 2 players last week were able to come in and showcase their talents, and with mixed success. The first one up on the docket is going to be Dethroner. Dethroner came in for SK and actually looked really damn good compared to what he had done as a sub for Envy and what we had seen out of him in the past. And so I was just wondering, do you think him being picked up not only for SK has given him the chance he deserves, but also SK the chance that maybe they can actually get to land?
Dethroner was a surprise for me. The way that he performed looked like somebody who was not thrown out to the deep end and expected to swim, having no lessons, never even seen a body of water before. He looked like he was a sea veteran, a captain of a pirate ship for some reason. As you can see with the dredge anchor, he's familiar with the tools. And you know what? I love this, because when you bring in a front line, it's hard because they have to have that kind of mentality that I own this moment. I'm leading the charge. And what Dethroner did to me, definitely on my hot list. Somebody who I think, you know, obviously, personally, guy's good looking, but that's not what I'm talking about here. As far as in the game, is going to be a target and have a target on his back to try and get him off his flow, because he was looking good in the PPL. Yeah,
and I think you got to ask the question, you know, how much was he subbing on that Team Evia squad? How familiar is he with playing not only the role that he was currently filling for SK, will he continue to fill that role? SK is a roster that has done a little bit of swapping here and there. Will they keep Bitey on the off tank for the rest of the season? I think Honestly, Dethroner's going to be important, but finding the right position for Bitey to be in is really always a big conversation about SK Gaming.
So the other player that we want to look at.
That's right.
Dethroner having mixed success, I would say, you know, doing well himself, but not being able to find wins with his team.
Right.
The other player, not so much of either. Alex came through, and we said there was a lot of potential there, and it definitely looked like there was something to come out of him. But we didn't really get to see it during last week. And do you think this week for Mouse, is Alex going to be a factor, or is he just going to flop again?
Listen, I'm going to be very honest, Nick. I was very complimentary of Alex heading into this season. I said he was at LAN. I said he performed well. This is a great guy to add to your roster. I'm not impressed. I'm not happy. I actually am very disappointed in the way that he performed this week because he added nothing to a Mouse Sports roster that desperately needs something. They need to find an answer. They need a damage dealer that can compete and take some pressure off of Andrew Doodle's back. If anything, Alex added it by taking on the role of the Tyras, of the very hard champions that their whole playstyle was hinging on, and not getting the job done. So for me, he has to have a comeback week here. Otherwise, it's a big no-no for me.
Well, let me ask you this. If you have good feelings about him going in, right? Take Flame. That goes in for G2, right? And he has a couple of good games. Overall, they don't manage to win their set, but he's still, you know, he's there. He's having an impact. If Alex comes in on Na'Vi or on Fnatic, do you think he can have a Flame level of performance?
Absolutely, but it's because also of the culture of Mouse Sports that they don't put him on a position to do that. I mean, what would Na'Vi, you know, put him on that Tyra, or would they put Phoenix on there and have him
come in on those teams as a carry?
Right.
And just because of the incredible nature of that team around him, right?
You have to decide on what the carry is, though, and that's what I think they didn't do well. They had Cassie's available, they had Leon's available. They put him on Tyras. They put him on things that were still questionable in the meta, and were still questionable in terms of how do you play it on maps that were weird, like Splitstone and all these things like that. So to me, it is about just getting him on safe carry picks. I think if he's on Na'Vi, that doesn't happen, and he just gets a Cassie, gets a Leon, and he's fine.
So far, we've seen teams very heavily prioritize this Tyra, so I'm kind of curious as to whether or not that's going to stick. And again, like you said, moving that away from players like Alex and putting it on the ones that have that experience, being able to keep it. But G2 was showcasing a way to maybe fight the Tyra, something that had been, I guess, kind of hinted at was always going to be Tyra's real good. Got to keep it on the low, like no one can know. And then everyone comes in picking it like first or banning it. But then G2 comes in with the Snow Globe Eevee, and they kind of changed the way things worked, at least in terms of trying to fight her, because you never know when the ult is going to get dropped on you.
Tyra's at least won a game.
That's right.
That's not something we can say for Snow Globe.
No, it is. It's 1-2, but you weren't casting those.
Oh.
Yeah, it was on Wednesday.
Yeah.
You were busy on the other portion of the realm.
But that's true, though. You are correct that there is, you know, wins and losses. And it's specifically a G2 esports thing that there's running. So this hasn't transcended the way that Tyra has.
I think, you know, I want to see it more, man. I really, really enjoyed that game when it was running. And it's just so cool. I mean, it's one of the things, like, it just functions like no other Legendary. Like we were talking about, you know, Koga's got some builds that make him feel like it. This doesn't feel like anything else. There's nothing that allows you to just pop your ultimate off 2-3 times in the fight.
Right, and it's such an interesting look for Eevee, who's used to being in and out, being this kind of like just treacherous champion that you can never get your like hold on. And what Snow Globe is you take away a lot of the mobility of Wormhole, you take away a lot of the safety of Reprieve, which I think is actually not bad right now. And you then add a level of difficulty to your in general Eevee play, which is just how do I position in this fight so that I don't die instantly by having 1800 health and actually do damage until I'm ready to ult. Like, that's a hard thing when you can't just blink in, blink out. So I think it is something that will get better with time, but it also something that Evil Eye and G2 might drop, considering the fact that he's the only one playing it, and maybe there becomes better options.
I think you get better at playing it, but at the same time, you have a trade-off, right?
They start to understand it.
Yep, they're getting used to it. They're drafting around it. They're expecting it. I don't think right now anyone's really quite there yet.
It's one of those things you had mentioned. I mean, you lose mobility from Wormhole. A lot of people were trying to bump up Swift Witch to try and get something else in there, but once you blink in, no matter what, you're kind of locked down. And of course, the win they did have, I mean, it was up against SK, so I don't know if G2 can say that this is a wide success just yet.
Well, sorry, just to cut you off, I think there's another card that we're not seeing with this build that I actually found worked pretty well, and I think it's Killing Frost, whatever it is that allows you to get your soar, basically what you use with your Over the Moon. And when you get those kills, 80%, 100% cooldown reduction, I think is maybe the playstyle people might want to switch on, because I mean, how can you not kill a person who's locked down in an ice storm like a Victor or a Tyra? That's pretty easy, and then you get all your cooldowns back. So that may be a way to snowball the build a little bit more.
Oh, if you're looking at the way Evil Eye was playing it, though, I mean, he was just initiating for his team and then
he was initiating. That's true.
And then and then he would use a soar to get out, right? So he's either soaring in, using Blink to get out. I don't know. It's a good thought. It's a great card, I think, but he's not playing it that way to get the kills.
Kind of feels as though the teams need to adapt how they're playing Eevee more than really have just the talent change. Like, you have to play style change as well to make sure it works.
We saw, like, Rift Walk 4, right? We saw ways and things Evil was doing to try and compensate and have a little bit more of that walk speed.
Well, I'm excited to see how that one goes through. One thing that was happening last week, outside of Snow Globe Eevee, outside of some of the other things, but new players coming in, now they have their first week behind them. But looking back at SK, we've kind of hinted at them, and again, G2 get their wins on Snow Globe for them. Invocal was ridiculous.
He's phenomenal.
Invocal was going up. I think at one point he was like 27-9. Like, he had really good KDAs the entire week.
Yeah.
And they still couldn't pull out a win.
Well, I mean, that to me is more of an SK problem than an Invocal problem. But it's rare because SK's problems usually was Invocal. But, you know, Bitey clearly put some work in. He had actually taken Jaden under his wing, one of our youngest players. He used to be the hot young talent meme that Raby started and has continued on in Paladins history. But I think the aspect of him having that lights out performance is that he's finally jumped up into the maturity spot for me. He's finally gone into, I'm not just a kid trying to learn the ropes of the PPL. I am a top-tier damage player in the PPL, and he just needs Payin to show up with him. That's all.
That's kind of been the story of SK for so long now, or, you know, even back to the days of Danny, right? And Shady Shades, like, one of them, they would just take turns, like, passing the rock back to each other, and they both needed to start scoring.
Yeah.
You mentioned, or the way you came into that was an SK problem. Like, Invocal looks fine, but SK seems to be have an overarching problem that's going on behind the scenes, and that is actually really good with the way things are going. We want to know, or I want to know, actually, more, being able to pick your brains, if captains of SK, so maybe looking towards Bitey and captain of Virtus Pro, you look at Elvenpath, people who are changing their rosters all the time, having either new players come in or trying to cultivate the younger guys into something that could be a top player. Do you think the problem, even if, like, when the players are performing, is the problem moving kind of up the chain? Is it going to be a captain level issue?
I think the bigger thing that you're saying is that, you know, as these rosters swap again and again and again, and only one player stays constant, what's the problem? At that point, is it the rosters that keep swapping, or is it the person who stays and is the constant for the issues? And so you have to look at the captains. And when you are putting together a team like that, Nick, and you're bringing in, you're saying, I vouch for this guy, I vouch for that guy, like Bitey and Elvenpath are doing, when they don't perform, that does fall on you.
I think, you know, obviously I've never been the captain of a PPL team, but I've seen a lot of times it comes down to who just feels like kind of doing the paperwork, right? That comes with being a captain. That comes with scheduling the scrims, right? Getting everyone ready for the games and making sure everyone knows when they need to be around to play, right? That doesn't really translate to I should have all of the power and control over this roster, right? Which I feel like, you know, it does come with that role, right? I think a lot of the orgs would look to the captain to try and make those decisions, right? But it doesn't always equate. It doesn't always translate to me. Coming from, I've heard some people talk about it as, you know, it is like just kind of a lot of homework, a lot of paperwork.
Well, I'll call cop out on that because I don't think Elvenpath's operating that way. Virtus Pro is very much Elvenpath. He's the captain of that ship. He's saying you stay or you go. And I think Bitey does have a similar role as far as who he approves of stays. Who he doesn't approve of, do they go? I don't know. I don't know that part, but I know that Elvenpath has that authority. We've seen it. You can't switch out 4 members like that and bring 4 new PGS players in without having that kind of ability, in my opinion. So he's controlling that side. Bitey's, whatever he's doing, they need to make it work. Otherwise, there's the only one place you can look is up.
Do you think that if this split continues the way so far that it's gone for them, either Virtus Pro looking like they're on a kind of positive trajectory, but not enough to potentially make LAN, SK kind of flopping this week's actually going to be very important to them, but we'll get to that later. Do you think if they end up not making the LAN, not being able to go to anything HRX at all, that they look potentially at just either retiring or coming through as maybe not the captain, maybe moving down and letting someone else take control?
Absolutely. I think at that point, right, how many times can you do a full roster swap and go winless?
Yeah, I mean, you have to just look at results. I think this is a results-based game, and especially a league, you need to get wins, and that's what Splice has done. I wouldn't say that SK or anyone else would do anything differently. If you're not getting wins, you have to make changes.
And I think that's going to be the big question, but a lot of changes have come through for a lot of these PPL teams, and even though we've only had 1 week of play, you can kind of see where some of them I think are going to be landing. Virtus Pro so far, I'm still kind of iffy about them. SK, like I said, this week is going to be very important for them, but NIP was another team that came through last week with a lot of changes and kind of big question marks around these changes as to whether or not they were going to be impactful. They end up grabbing Koga, who already had that kind of experience in the Premier League and as a competitive player.
That's right.
And being able to come into this, do you think, based on what you saw last week, that this is a team that could win Worlds?
I think NIP have the potential to win Worlds. Are they playing like they're winning Worlds now? No, but they have the tools in place with veterans like Bird. They added Koga, which was a great piece, I think, to just get them comfortable with another guy that they feel comfortable traveling with, talking with on comms, that's been through the same kind of life path. I know Bonker hasn't had the easiest of lives as well, but has done really well to go through that adversity and be where he is in the PPL, from sub to mainstay to absolute rock for this NIP team. I'm really happy to see where they go. I think they have the chance to make a run.
It's going to be a hot underdog for sure. I don't think they're going to come in the favorites whatsoever, but I think it could happen.
I'm really excited to see how they go throughout this week. And I think throughout the split, because of the way things have been changed up, I think they have a very considerable chance at least making it to LAN, which has been a while since we've seen some of them, so it'd be really nice to see them. But with all of that going past, we do have a lot of games this week that are going to be important. One of the teams, again, we've mentioned time and time again, is VP being able to come through. I almost mixed NIP and VP. The VIP. Well, the VIP of VP, Elvenpath. We got to sit down with him a little bit last week.
Oh, great.
And just talk to him about what's going to be going on through his mind for this week and, you know, how they feel about the PPL.
Alan and I hold shift down for you, and I've got a very friendly face on the other side of the camera. Elvenpath, how's things going for you today?
Pretty good, thank you.
Good, it's good to have you. I mean, you're always been one of our favorite people to have on camera. Usually a lot of things get said. Maybe some things a little over a line, but that's what makes you you, and we love having you around. How are you feeling just about the PPL in general? It's been a pretty rough year for Virtus Pro as a whole, but a lot of success lately. I mean, do you feel a little more confident coming into the end of the year?
I mean, I wouldn't say it was a rough year. I would say it was rough last half year. It was only 6 months, the previous VP roster. And now it definitely got better. It definitely improved overall, globally, whatever you call it. So I'm now feeling much better to be playing with the new guys.
And at the same point, the last 6 months, obviously, specifically in this calendar year, it's been a lot of you making a lot of personal, versatile changes when it comes to what champions you're playing. There was a couple of weeks in there where you were actually taking the damage role. Does it feel more comfortable for you to be that IGL and to be that guy up front, like making things happen? Or do you kind of, you know, did you enjoy playing the damage role? Did you like having that little bit of stardom behind it?
I think the reason for that was trying to make something happen out of nowhere if none of the other things were working. So it was more of a desperation rather than some thoroughly thought move, you know what I mean? So I can't say that I'm way more comfortable now playing like the usual frontline role. And yeah, you see what happens when I don't. Like, I didn't speak English in like 6 months. This is why it's happening right now. I'm sorry. And yeah, it's not like I feel more comfortable playing frontline role right now, but it's okay. It's the same as it was 1 year ago, for example. And it's much better to be playing frontline now with other players than it was for the last 6 months. But yeah.
Now, speaking of, so a year ago was that incredible run that you guys made during the fall finals as Virtus Pro. Kind of came out of nowhere. You guys were the 4th seed, ended up running through, being undefeated, playing just really good, mechanical, ultimate efficient Paladins. Do you feel like with the current changes with this newest patch that it almost feels like a relearning to get back to that level that you once were at?
The game definitely got harder, and the game definitely got more versatile. The picks are now more versatile, and it's a big part. And obviously, it's way different now because I believe, like with every patch, there are less and less blatantly OP champions. Like for example, that Terminus that we won that PPL land with. I mean, let's be obvious. We only played Terminus, and no one just took it from us. And he was really strong. Some people even may say he was bugged. So like that's why we won back then. And right now with very little OP champions like that, everything is much harder, but at the same time it's much more interesting to play. So it's all in your hands.
Now, outside of the game itself, you are always there's very little filter to what goes behind what you think versus what you say. So I want to get your thoughts on your opponents in Europe this time around in the fall with all the different changes, some faces familiar, some faces new. Who do you think's on top? Who do you think might not be quite there yet, and who needs the most work in your opinion?
Obviously, you don't need to ask me who is on the top because it's written on all esports pages about Paladins. Obviously, Na'Vi are on the top right now, and this comes from them playing together for a very, very long time. Like basically, right now with all the shuffles, Na'Vi is the oldest team, and a few years, like what, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, whenever they formed, it was the opposite. They were the youngest, and there was Nip who was the oldest. There was our team who was the oldest. But look how things changed right now. So they are at the top, yeah. And all other teams, well, besides Fnatic, of course, they also shuffled. And I think that shuffles are always good, and I think that shuffles always help. And I think that all teams right now below Na'Vi could maybe potentially beat each other given certain circumstances. But it's really all about Na'Vi, to me it feels, at this moment. Like, they're just a bit higher than the rest. And every other team, you know, given with proper practice, with proper everything, anything can happen. But it's only a current matter of things and nothing else. We will see. It's all in our hands, in each team's hands, to make something happen to it.
We'll catch you next time, bud. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
It's been a while since I think I've seen Elvenpath like smile.
Yeah, it was
Normally
great.
He's very stoic.
No braces. Congratulations. That's a long haul, man. Congrats.
Braces, from what I've heard, I've never experienced it myself, are the worst. So being able to make it through that and play competitively at the level that he has, I'd say, is relatively impressive.
It's not like your
Truly
teeth
a
are
national
aching.
hero.
I don't know.
Truly a
I feel
national
like
hero.
they
What do you think
would
braces
cut
are? It's
the
not like getting
inside of your
tortured.
lips a lot. I
Braces
don't know.
at like the first probably like 2 or 3 days is pretty rough, but then you kind of forget they're there.
Then you forget they're there.
So before we move on, because I hate moving on and not talking about what we just listened to, my thing from Elvenpath, biggest takeaway is the fact that he thinks that shuffles are good, and I think that's partly why you see so many shuffles on Virtus Pro.
He kinda
He's a
has
fan
to.
of shuffling. If you see him on the dance floor, electric shuffle is the only thing that's going on in Elvenpath.
Do you play cards with him?
No, he's
best
but
shuffler
he's a
you've
great
ever seen.
shuffler
Doesn't
as
matter
well.
who the dealer is. He just at least wants that role.
But the other thing that I think is most important is that he's so aware of Na'Vi, and I think heading into it, I think that's where Europe, I think that's where North America are looking. Na'Vi is the kingpin. Everyone's trying to topple that big dog.
yeah.
So with the way things went, we actually can just look at how Virtus Pro and the rest of the crew did last week during the PPL with the way things shook out. VP wasn't quite as successful, I would say, as they want, but it definitely feels, especially after that, that Elvenpath is pretty confident overall that they're in a position where even if they don't get the first game they want, they're learning a lot better and they're moving themselves forward every single step of the way.
I feel good about it. Scheduled for this week, Mousesports and Na'Vi. That should be a relatively quick one, but Virtus Pro and NIP is something that I'm really looking forward to, Nick. I mean, as far as the matchups that are tight, I think that could be one of them, right?
Yeah, you get those good reads. We talked a little bit about last week. You get to see how close those top teams are, or excuse me, the bottom teams are to the top teams in those matchups. A lot of times they do end up being blowouts, but then you just know, right? Whenever there's been a roster change, you got to double check in. You got to say, hey, how's it going? How are we feeling about this? Okay, still 4-0. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next one. When you get these close matchups here in the second week, you get to see a little bit more from those teams. Splice is another one I'm looking out for. They only had one matchup last week. It was a rough one for them.
Yeah.
And they'll get their doubleheader and maybe the chance to show us something this week.
Well, the first game that we actually wanted to look at in depth is one of the ones that normally it's a 4-0, kind of expected going into this, but because we had so many question marks about Alex, I really kind of want to pick your brain about Mousesports versus Na'Vi. Alex is probably the one that could excel for Mousesports, but also it could just be Na'Vi.
Is that how we set this segment up? Can Mousesports beat Na'Vi? Is that the whole thing? I don't remember that at all.
It's been referred to as trap games.
Okay, this is the game you might want to go take a walk around the park on, or maybe you don't. Because if you finish your walk, the set might be over. That's the game that this is, and until Mousesports plays differently, we have to give them that. I can't take a world champion, a 2-2 LAN champion, and say they're going to lose against the bottom team in the league. No disrespect.
No.
but you can forget about it.
To a rookie?
To a rookie? You got to earn your way in this league, buddy. Come on.
So, as we would expect, it's going to be Na'Vi. You don't think, even if Alex has like a phenomenal set?
You could get on out of here. You can go ahead. All right. We already answered that.
Virtus Pro and Na'Vi. No. So, I mean, a lot of what he had last week was, like you said, high execution champions.
Yeah. Kinessa and the Tyra.
Do you think Mouse...
Get him on a Cassie. Get him on a Leon. Point? Yeah. I think they can get a defense maybe. But it's going to be rough because you're talking about a well-oiled machine. It's not a bunch of great players who are just, hey, Alex is a talented player, but he's not playing in a machine that he understands yet. They still have to figure it out. So it's a well-oiled machine versus a machine with all the parts still laid out in the garage, and you put them on the racetrack next to each other. One moves, one doesn't move
This is the kid. He put the go-kart together like by himself, right? Yeah. And he has to go against like the rich kid from like up in Beverly Hills. He comes down as like dad's like Enzo Ferrari. He's made him this custom. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's going to be an uphill battle.
It's just makes me think it's one of those moments. If it's a movie, that means Mouse Sports like has this entirely drawn out 4-3, 4-3, 4-3, 4-3. It goes to game 5, and they like at the tail end of the game they win it, but this is reality. So
it's like the race in the Little Rascals. You know the Little Rascals race where they have those little cars? That's what Mouse Sports are driving right now. And it's not going to win much.
Their goal is to get that win. But
just against Na'Vi, though.
As long as they look better, I think that they can take that one as a win. But with the way things are going, a match that is still kind of separate, something that we have kind of expected to turn into 4-0s, but doesn't look like it's going to be that way anymore, is the Virtus Pro NIP match that we've been talking about earlier, having 2 members from NIP now on Virtus Pro. Do you think having that insight to how that team is going to work is going to help Virtus Pro take this matchup?
I mean, NIP has always been better than VP for the most part, except for excluding that, that one fall in that VP were able to win. They still, I think, are better than VP. It's just a matter of how much did NIP jump forward and how much did VP jump forward and seeing how close they are, maybe even further apart than they used to be.
And I think it's NIP who had a tab on what Elvenpath and Virtus Pro were trying to do pretty well. Remember, this is the team that they tried to do that quadra frontline against on Ice Mines. And NIP were like, okay, come on, we've been there before, buddy. We've seen your shenanigans. And I think at this point now, Virtus Pro a little shifty. They have shuffled. And NIP, I think, still have to find their bearings. I guarantee NIP are confident saying we are going to 4-0 this the way Na'Vi feel like they're going to 4-0 Mouse Sports. But I think Virtus Pro, in reality, have a much better chance of making this an interesting set than our previous one. So I'm really looking forward to
this. If anything else, it's going to be fun to watch the reunion of Elvenpath, Sheepa, Peridot, and squaring off against old teammates.
Absolutely.
That's one of those things. Both these teams have brought in 3 players, I think, across the 2 of them to be able to take that in. 3 new players, I should say, from Clown Fiesta. But you have Sheepa joining this roster back and being able to play. He looked, again, comfortable, especially being able to sit back somewhere, but they didn't necessarily have, again, the easiest matchups last week. Do you think their performance this week could be the difference, the make or break for Virtus Pro being able to take down NIP?
Yeah, Sheepa is what was Phoenix, right? Phoenix and ClickU are the new school guys that Sheepa was in the very beginning, where he was the flex that would be able to play frontline, also play some frontline damage like a Barrack, but also be able to shift onto a Cassie or a Pip and play Catalyst when needed. And that is something that if he gets back to form, if he kind of takes a little bit of the, I've been doing this for a while, but now gets comfortable on a Leon, gets comfortable on maybe one of those tertiary damage dealers we haven't seen him on, I think Sheepa can have a breakout season again for being a veteran and one of the OGs.
In terms of the scope of this split, though, I still have, NIP is going to be sort of that middleman, right? They're going to be that probably 3rd place team for Europe. You've got Fnatic and Na'Vi at the top. You've got Mouse and VP at the bottom. I think NIP are about as close to Fnatic and Na'Vi as VP would be probably to them, and I think that's what's going to make this matchup exciting to watch.
Virtus Pro beat NIP, though, do you say that Virtus Pro now has a legit chance to make 3rd?
I think NIP will think so, right? That's part of it, right? They have to be able to beat NIP. They have to be able to get these matchups over Mouse Sports. If they even want to consider getting to that 3rd place spot, the magic number this time around.
They gotta win. Okay, it's must win for VP.
Must win for VP. Yeah. With the way things are going, that's going to be good if they can get it. Otherwise, it's more or less what we would expect if they don't. Going into it, we also have a match that we've deemed kind of the match of the week, the one that you don't want to miss. If you're, not watching Na'Vi versus Mouse, this is the one that you want to make sure you are there for, and it is Renegades going up against Team Envy. Now, this is a team that usually they come out. I think Envy always has come out on top, but that gap between the two is just closed and closed and closed.
I mean, this is more than we see NIP, Fnatic for sure. Like North America, 3rd, 2nd seed are way closer than pretty much anywhere else in our leagues.
Yeah.
And except maybe for 1st, 2nd, which sometimes would be Fnatic, Na'Vi. I think the idea of Renegades taking 3rd is really refreshing because of the fact that they just have, or even 2nd is really refreshing because they've always gone to LAN but never on their own terms.
Because they've always taken 3rd.
Yeah, they on their own terms. And I think if they can finally get over that hump, it would make NA such an interesting place to watch Paladins.
If they do come in 3rd again, it'll be fun as well to watch. Just knowing that they deserve the spot, right? Like that they are owning that 3rd place spot. Maybe they play differently. Maybe they play with like a little bit less of a chip on their shoulder. But I think this is a team that's always given G2 trouble. A little bit more so than they've given Envy trouble. And Envy kind of looking a little bit better than they ever have. You know, they take down G2 as well. I don't know. This one could be easy for Envy.
I honestly think the reason it has always given G2 trouble a little more is I think Renegades and Envy just prepare for G2 more than they prepare for themselves. I honestly think it's the same way Elvenpath is looking at Na'Vi and probably not looking at Mousesports as much. It's just that G2 are the top dogs that they know they need to get a win on, and if they get that G2 win,
that's a good point.
They could just like lose a game in the midseason and be okay because they got the win no one else is going to get. So I think that's probably why they see them look better. But this particular season, I have a feeling both of these teams are recognizing one another pretty well.
I'm excited to be able to see this one because, again, this one's always incredibly close. And the Renegades have been looking tight. Ever since, like, summer split, everything was getting even better. I was actually kind of expecting to see them at the LAN, but the SEA guys were able to get their visas through, so they got to come that time around, so no Renegades. But this time around, like you said, they could potentially earn their spot, and this could make them a little bit more comfy if they are able to win this one towards the end of the split. If they are able to kind of rip that 2nd place spot away from Envy or G2, whoever ends up there, and bring it to themselves. But we also have another must-win, which I also would qualify as maybe a must-watch match for me at least, which is Splyce and SK. It's not going to be as high octane, I think, as the last match, but this is important for both of these teams.
Yeah, I think it's a must-win for both. That's the thing we kind of talked about earlier. It's that Splyce, if they want a chance at 3rd, have to beat SK. There's no way you can lose to SK after SK lost earlier on. So, but SK in the same vein, if they want to get back on track, just kind of, it's a rough week start, but if you want to get back on track, you have to beat Splyce. There's no way SK can lose to Splyce as well, go 0-3, and have a chance at 3rd. So both teams are in a unique position of having to win to even come close to making HRX.
That's really, as you kind of talked about, like, if you're able to snipe away one of those wins that no one else is going to get off those top 2 teams, that's great for you, but you still need to put these in the pocket, right? Because that win that no one else could get only matters if you're getting all the ones that you were already supposed to get. That's what's going to elevate you to that 3rd place position, and that's what these bottom teams are gunning for.
Well, with the way things have gone, we can actually just take a look at the standings for how the PPL has been going and where everyone is sitting. Envy and Na'Vi both sitting at top, which is honestly not too surprising considering how well they play at LAN every single time. Next week, Fnatic has a doubleheader, so expect them to potentially rise. It's going to be against Mouse and Virtus Pro, so both of those more than likely going to be some blowouts for Fnatic to kind of fluff their stats up towards the top. But
and just to say, we didn't say this, but Envy is in 1st place, and G2 are not the top dogs right now. So congrats to them. I know MetaPush is going to tweet at us if we don't mention this, but they're finally in 1st from week 1 on. They can hold on to this and be top seed in NA.
I mean, until I honestly see G2 maybe taking them down later on in the split, I don't think they're ever going to be able to. Yeah, I think it's going to be comfy for Envy sitting up there, at least for a little while, as they're up potentially on Cloud 9. But we do have, as always, a Joe Bro joint to be able to come through. A nice little meme video.
I better not be in this.
I'm actually really curious as to what's going to be in this because I know I've been doing some ridiculous things when I get left alone in the caster.
We might be running out of ammo with you. You know, with you and Gabby, that was a lot of our fuel for these meme videos.
I told you, I mean, last week I lost my dancing partner.
I'm curious to see where Joe has scraped up his material this week.
So now, let's see what he has.
I've mastered the ability of standing so incredibly still that I've become invisible to the eye. Watch.
Psych! That's the wrong number!
You'd be pretty comfortably set.
Yeah, right. Please. I'll take him. Go ahead. Wait, it's Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
My dudes.
It's a lot of small things throughout all of that just ate away.
It's all the small things.
It felt like all the small things.
Yeah.
I don't remember the next line. I'll go with it. One day it'll come back to me like in like 5 minutes.
Do you really need the next line in that?
No, really you don't.
True care. I think that's like something like that. Somebody knows.
She left me roses by the stairs.
She left me roses by the stairs. Surprises let me know she cares. Say it ain't so, I will not go. Turn the lights off, carry me. Oh, I was in that. I'm pissed. No, that was great. That was hilarious.
Oh, man. That last one was live, so you could experience that one in full effect.
You know, there's always this moment with Gore where he gives you this blank stare, and I can't tell if it's for comedic effect or if he really doesn't know what he's about to say. And
it's a little bit of both.
Sometimes you just got and sometimes you got to go with it, and then he usually jumps on the ship.
Little Ortega Taco Girl. Why not both?
Master the art.
Oh,
standing
man.
so incredibly
That was funny,
still.
man. That's what Drax from Guardians
of the Galaxy.
Oh,
That was in Infinity War. There was a point where he is practicing standing.
I loved it. I loved it.
Still.
Oh, my cheeks hurt, dude.
But with all of those, I want to say plays potentially. Well, we have top plays at least from the people that actually play the game and play it incredibly well to be able to come through. The first one is actually going to be a quadra kill, and it's going to be Phoenix on Tyra, something that I'm sure he was happy about being able to experience.
Yeah.
Saw a couple of these, right? It was kind of a
Bonker got one too.
It became a thing.
You get a quadra kill.
Everyone needs to get a quadra kill, or else you did not succeed with Tyra.
Yeah, you didn't keep up. I mean, this is why. And then you just say, why are we first picking Tyra? Well, let me show you right there. Almost dies to the tick damage of Fernando's Flame Lance. 80 health.
Very close. And it's actually funny you mentioned that Bonker got one because Bonker's Tyra Quad is actually the next top play
original.
being able to come through.
Okay.
This one's on Jaguar Falls. I actually remember watching this one
Bonker's better than Phoenix. Why?
Well, I guess his was cleaner.
Take that, Phoenix.
Maybe it's because
it's against the
Bonker,
top-seeded team, right?
It's against Fnatic.
By the way, let me tell you this. This play, a lot more is done by Bonker.
Yeah, he's a little bit more on his
own. The other
play,
play,
a little bit more
everyone is at Ice Mines running into Phoenix, which we all know if you played Ice Mines, that's just, you're inevitably losing. You're just which style do I want to lose in? Do I want to go Firebomb?
At least you're losing in style.
Yeah.
I think it's
the plus.
Really funny to me that we've been kind of like, are we sold on Tyra? Is she actually as good as she is? And then 2 of the top plays end up being Tyra. Anyway, so she has that potential.
But that was it.
But
that was it for the week.
That's the only one.
Those 2 moments.
Yeah.
And the other one is actually one of the reasons. Well, we see Khan all the time, but I feel like we don't get to see Khan the way Phoenix played him.
Oh, Phoenix is 2?
Phoenix has 2.
Damn.
And he rips Willow out of the air. That's my favorite part of this.
One of the best point fights I think I've ever seen.
That was absolutely sick. I think Jaguar Falls makes for some really great moments. I think the 2 that come to mind is I think it was the longest point fight in history. I think it took like actually 6 minutes to finish. It was like Renegades and SK, I think, way back in the day.
That's the length of a game between Mouse and Navi.
I know.
Well, no, our SKG2 match, the one you didn't see, it's so funny. There was a 5-minute. I mean, that first point
took a little while.
It took like 5 minutes. Yeah.
Was it Ascension Peak?
It was Ascension Peak.
Yeah. I
mean, that map,
it.
they play it so cautiously. It's interesting.
I will say, I think it's important to note that Khan play he made after running into the point like 2 or 3 times and just dying instantly every single time he got there. That was like the only time it actually worked out for the team.
It's special because the Willow doesn't have the Flutter or the Fae Flight during the time he throws her off. It's usually a champion that won't get baited by that, but it was great timing.
And the best part about that point fight is there was a couple plays near that caliber, a little bit before and maybe a little bit after that as well. So there was a lot happening, and that was a really fun one to watch.
Well, I'm also excited for our top fail just because I feel like we normally pull from the PPL because that's where most of the content will come. But this one's actually from the PGS. His knife on Wolfpack. He gets a really good Androx Assault, and then he gets bopped off the map.
Just sailed off into the sunset.
Originally, I thought he had gotten ulted out of his Accursed Arm. I was like, that's like the worst case scenario.
Should have put my Leon clip
I was going to say, my Manifest Destiny.
I would have hit that. I would have hit that.
Destiny.
That, I can't... I relate to that so hard because once you put that card in your loadout,
Watch
that
out.
happens to everybody for the first 3 games, and then okay, this is how long my dash is.
It's
This is
not
what
like I
need to
didn't
be
know
aware
that
of.
was happening. I just thought it wasn't going to take me that far, which was the funny. I thought I could do it right, because I know the ledge thing just didn't happen. It's not like oh, what?
Slight miscalculation.
Slight miscalculation in the heat of the moment.
See what you needed to do.
I was on a roll, too. I boom, hit the presence. I'm like, I'm coming for you.
I don't know if you had your ult at the time, but that was one of those moments you could see Rock Monkey.
That would have been
He
so
dashes
sick,
off,
dude.
you just turn an ult, and it doesn't matter if you die as long as you
That
get a
would
kill.
have been the play.
The emergency brake, baby.
Well, we also end up having a new kind of way to approach our meta section. So before, we've just kind of been like, hey, talk about this. But looking at the way some of these champions have gone,
Buy
and
or
especially
sell.
because there's a lot, do you want to buy or sell on some of these champions? So I have a list, and actually players as well is in this list. So we have a whole lot to be able to go through, but the first one is Androxus. So far, he has kind of risen in the meta. He's been picked up a lot, either with Torvald or even without. Buy or sell?
I'm buying.
How are we doing this exactly?
So it's a stock market. You buy in the stock, you think it's going to rise, you're making an investment, or you think you should sell it because it's going to drop. I think it's going to even get better. I think we're going to see more Andro bans. I think we're going to definitely see him in compositions. Because Torvald's valuable, Andro usually jumps back in on that. And I love the way that people are using his dash. The range is just, people said it didn't matter too much, but I don't agree. I think that the punch is a really nice secure, and I'm seeing it a lot against top teams.
I think I'm going to sell this one. Right? I think it might be a little bit of a panic sell. I'm already seeing him dip a little bit in popularity. And that's how it worked, right? I think it's already hit its peak, right? If we were all issued a little bit of Andro stock at the start of the PPL, I think it's risen to where it's going to be, and I'm selling it.
All right.
So moving from Androxus, how about Tyra? With the way things have been going, I mean, we've hit on her quite a few times, but is she something? I mean, she's been highly valued. Do you buy and ride the risk, or do you just sell
I'm buying
now?
this because it should be just
should be
cheap.
Low.
I think
low.
this is dirt cheap stock right now, and you want to load up on it.
No, this is not dirt cheap. This is first ban, first pick stock right here.
Maybe over in Europe, but in the U.S. markets, it's not doing very well, Evan.
So I agree, and I'm gonna go for where we've seen it played, which is Europe, where it's highly valued. I'm gonna sell it. I don't think Tyra is valued at the appropriate level. I think she can work. Great asset. I love that Tyra is a factor in this meta. Is she changing games when you pick her? Do you win instantly? No. And for that reason, I'm selling my stock. I think she's going to fall a little.
I think, with the assumption that it's not dirt cheap, I would also sell. I'd get rid of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's already stinky, right? So I think this is a penny stock for me, right?
It's one of those,
That's one I want to buy.
because you see it, you buy it because no matter what, you're going to get something
It's not costing me
at the end
anything
of the
at
day.
this point.
Gotcha.
Which actually, I think is a good one because Ying, to me, seems like she's in that area where she's not really highly regarded, not really highly picked. She's kind of lower down on the tier. So if you buy, you're pretty much buying low. But I feel like she deserves to be a little bit higher. So for Ying, buy or sell?
I'm going to buy Ying. And I really do agree with that. I think that where we've seen Tyra take this high-level approach where everyone is loving them and I want a piece of Tyra, I think Ying has been a little bit undervalued, and I actually do appreciate some of the numbers we've seen with Life Exchange. It gives you more control for the healing, and it also allows higher-level players to take advantage of their choices more. Ying doesn't usually offer choices for healing, and the clones just heal the lowest target, but now you can, and I think we're seeing the biggest numbers almost we've ever seen with Ying healing and Life Exchange.
She's still pretty exclusive to the European market right now, but I definitely agree, right? She's almost the opposite of Tyra in that market, where she's not being really looked at a whole lot, but when she is, she does fairly well for herself, so I definitely want to buy Ying as well.
Well, originally we had a couple of players, but we are starting to crunch on time, so we're going to jump away from the buy or sell and go straight towards the PGS and what we had seen with last week. A lot of interesting matches that have been coming through it again with the change to the format, the top 4 teams from each region playing each other in a round-robin format, so they're always getting to play someone that is around that same level instead of some of the blowouts we used to see. We're getting these areas where actually one of the bigger questions, and this was one that you had raised, if teams like Kanga are now potentially going to get defeated by the time they can actually maybe qualify for LAN.
And that's the thing you want to watch. That's the big note for the PGS this week is Despacito 2, the legends themselves, are going to be squaring off old school Western.
Their logos.
Thank you, sir. Kanga and Despacito 2, that's a matchup to watch this week.
To me, Latin America is where we need to pay attention. Jane coming through, replacing the great Hagate. He's got size 20 shoes. Jane has a lot to
Did you
fill.
just make that up?
Yeah, no, I did. And I'm going to stick with it as well. I haven't seen the man's feet, but I can guarantee that Hagate is a very, very big place to fill in terms of a DPS role and in terms of just confidence for Latin America and that the team that's qualified for the last 2 years. They've been here longer than I have, for crying out loud. So I'm excited to see how Jane picks up the slack.
Well, we can go ahead and look at the schedule for week 3 so you can see the matchups that are going to be important. One is going to be Free Agent Boys Fab as well as Kanga versus Despacito 2 there on Wednesday and Friday. But of course, we still have Europe, Brazil, North America, SEA, and CIS in the meantime. One every single day, or two most days. One on Thursday, Tuesday through Friday. So as always, make sure to tune in there. We have console coming up relatively shortly. We're going to be aiming for 11 in the morning, but you know that's about 15 minutes from now. If things are lucky for us, we'll be there. And it's going to be, again, 8 best of 3s. Tomorrow we'll have PGS at 11, PPL starting at 3 p.m. Tuesdays through Fridays. So make sure you tune in whenever possible. But as for us, we're going to go take a short break and stay tuned for the PGS or the PCL Paladins Console League.
Hey, there it is.
I guess with the way things are going. And we'll see you in just a little bit.